Welcome to our presentation about fostering a blended STEM education in the post-COVID era. My name is Suzanne Saraya and I'm with Explore Learning. And before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank the organizers of this fantastic conference, and in particular, Ms. Lisa Grace Wilson. Lisa, thank you for your continued effort to share knowledge with teachers everywhere, in particular during this very challenging year. As you all know, the coronavirus pandemic has unleashed a revolution in education. From now on, blended learning will be the benchmark in your schools. Including digital solutions in your classroom is no longer just an option, it is truly a necessity. Teachers now must adapt to new methods of teaching that will involve e-learning, and they also must find better ways to assess their students' progress. This situation has made it crucial for teachers to focus on the STEM field, as STEM graduates play such a vital role in developing meaningful solutions to societal problems, such as COVID. Let's start by defining the two main terms we're going to be using today, STEM and blended learning. So what is STEM education? STEM is based on the idea of educating students in 4 specific disciplines: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and doing so in an interdisciplinary and applied approach. Rather than teaching the 4 disciplines as separate and discrete subjects, STEM is going to integrate them in a cohesive learning paradigm based on real-world solutions. Okay, so what about blended learning? What is blended learning? Blended learning is an education program that combines online digital media with traditional methods. Blended learning encourages personalization of the e-learning experience by combining the best aspect of in-person teaching with technology-based e-learning methods. It broadens the learner's experience and it supports his learning anywhere, anytime. Okay, this is fantastic. So, but why are we teaching STEM? Why is STEM so important? Well, we know that each of you understands that today, more than ever, science and STEM educations are critical. STEM specialists use their skills to manage and improve important aspects of our life, such as the nation's economy and the population health outcomes like COVID. STEM fields affect virtually every aspect of your life, from commuting to school to heating our food. Really, STEM is everywhere, in agriculture, in architecture, in transportation, in music, and even in sports. However, many countries are faced with a shortage of STEM workers. For example, in 2018 in the US alone, nearly 2.5 million STEM jobs went unfilled. Yet only 16% of high school students were interested in STEM careers and performed well enough in mathematics to pursue them. So STEM is essential as it helps prepare students for the future. We agree on that. Okay. So what is it that we need to do? How can we reframe what we think? In the 21st century, scientific and technological innovations have become increasingly important as we face the benefits and challenges of both globalization and a knowledge-based economy. To succeed in this new information-based and highly technological society, students need to develop STEM capabilities at a much deeper level that was acceptable in the past. And because students in the early grades are natural scientists, it is essential to introduce them to STEM early and keep them interested and engaged in these fields. It's when we wait until the later grades that students begin to fall behind. So, we need to reframe the way we think. We need to start at looking at science as a non-negotiable. And we need to think that lab experiences not only are going to reinforce and refine language, but are also going to support logic and problem-solving skills. So for many students, science will be a premise to their vocation, no matter what it will be, whether it's in STEM or not. Now, what are some of the benefits of STEM education? STEM helps educate all students to become 21st century workers by fostering ingenuity and creativity. It's going to lead students to new ideas and innovations. It's going to also build resilience. STEM education stresses the value of failure as a learning exercise, which will enable students to embrace mistakes as part of the learning process. It's also going to encourage experimentation and teamwork. Because STEM teaches students how to work together, how to collaborate. By participating in group learning sessions, STEM learners develop habits that prepare them to be collaborative in the workplace, whether it's in a classroom or in their jobs. This deeply contributes to students' academic success. It also encourages knowledge application. STEM education can be taught to students of all ability levels and help students learn content and develop real-world skills. It encourages the use of technology. It also teaches students to problem solve. By engaging in STEM learning experiences, students learn how to examine problems, create a plan to solve them, and hone their critical thinking skills. Finally, it encourages students to adapt to new situations and problems and transfer their knowledge. So how can you implement that in your classroom today? No matter what your situation looks like, whether your school has decided to open for an in-person teaching, whether you're offering virtual classes only, or whether you've opted for a hybrid model, in the post-COVID era, your classroom will need to be flexible, engaging, collaborative, and differentiated. Research has confirmed over and over that blended learning and digital tools will facilitate this. And blended learning will also provide teachers with data to inform their instruction, data that may not have been available to them previously. So what else do we know? What does research confirm? Research confirms that early STEM is as critical today as early literacy exposure is. And STEM habits of mind, such as critical thinking, persistence, and systematic experimentation, are important across all subject areas and may actually be essential to how children learn to learn. What we also find out, very importantly, is that STEM amplifies language development, and language in turn enables STEM thinking. Also, inquiry skills, if emphasized early, create deeper thinkers who will use these skills to solve future problems for this ever-changing world. And STEM students learn as well online as in classrooms. This is some new research that came out of Cornell University this year. And finally, it is very important that you have a long-term support plan for blended learning programs for both human and digital resources, which means training, training, training. Training for your students, training for your teachers, and training on the programs that you will be using. So planning ahead is crucial for STEM blended learning. And technology that you have in your school should support the learning, not the other way around. So what do you think the ideal solution should look like? So the ideal solution should introduce STEM effectively at a very early age while supporting literacy. It should also ensure real-world teaching by allowing active learning through an exploration of real-world problems with hands-on interactive activities. It should facilitate questions to help students define problems and solve them through a differentiated learning inquiry approach. It should include technology that facilitates student exploration of concepts and problems in multiple formats, so students can learn on their own through productive struggle, or in a whole class, or in small groups so that we can foster collaboration. We should close the math gap early and develop a growth mindset. And finally, we have to make sure that we have a mindful pairing of digital resources to learning outcome to ensure the desired results. So what is our solution here at Explore Learning? At Explore Learning, what we made sure to have is a program that supports hands-on experiential learning with rich virtual interactive simulations. Today, it's going to be much harder getting our students in wet labs. As crucial as wet labs are, it's going to be a little bit riskier to put them working and touching the same equipment. So virtual interactive simulations are a great solution and a great way to get students working on hands-on experiential learning. We need to make sure that we're building STEM and 21st century skills. If you know about the 4 C's, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration. And we need to create inclusive classrooms that work for all students so we can have differentiation for all learners. We need to support English language learners. And we need to meet multiple international curricula and standards. Finally, we need to improve math fact fluency early on and include robust professional development. How do we do that? This is our solution. We have to take into consideration what we call the cognitive learning level. Our instructional strategies are curated to align with student interests and needs while preparing them to reach their full potential. They need to be ready to take part of that technological revolution we mentioned earlier. So to accomplish that, we meet students at their cognitive learning levels. There are basically 3 levels of cognitive learning. Surface learning, this is where students, through precise approaches, explore science concepts and skills that give way to a deeper exploration of scientific inquiry. Then we move to deep learning. This is when students engage with data and evidence to uncover relationship between concepts, and the students then think metacognitively and use knowledge to plan, investigate, and articulate generalization about scientific connection. And finally, we move to transfer learning. This is when students apply knowledge of scientific principle, processes, and relationship to novel contexts and are able to discern and innovate to solve problems. You can't just jump into deep learning. You have to transition there from surface learning to be set for success, and then move on to transfer learning. Let me show you what our solution looks like. So we start with science for us, and then we move to Gizmos and Reflex, and finally into the STEM cases. And here's what it looks like from a K-12 standpoint. And we're going to look at all of these 3 parts of this solution. Interactive STEM cases are part of Gizmos. They're highly focused on the high school part, but with options for the lower grades as well. So we're going to talk about these 3 programs, starting with K-2. What do we have in the K-2 area that also moves in a little bit into 3 to 5? And this is Science for Us. It's a blended approach to learning science. It's really developed for our youngest learners in the early elementary years. And the great thing about it is it's attainable for all schools, whether you have low tech or high tech. And not only does it include 350 interactive online lessons, it has over 1,000 offline hands-on lessons. All these lessons are standard aligned. They're developed alongside the NGSS framework, the IB curricula, as well as other curricula, and they're aligned to follow the 5E model. What's great about them is they integrate in the instructional process math and literacy standards as well as the arts. So this will allow educators to maximize their instructional time. And we've done it all already. All the work is done for you. Pedagogical videos, pre-written lessons, printable online and offline activities, everything is there. So what does it look like? Here's what the Science for Us program overview looks like. We start with an engage activity focused on a science concept that you choose here out of the 28 concepts. Then you move to the explore, where you're going to explore the concept a little bit. Then you're going to explain it. Then you're going to move to an elaboration on the concept through literacy skills, literacy in the art, math and STEM, and an investigation. And finally, we're going to have an evaluation. Each one of these different parts of the program will have both an online and an offline activity that you can look into. If you'd like to try the program, we're going to have a special program code for you to go on scienceforus.com and be able to take a free trial. Now let's move on into Gizmos. For some of you who don't know what Gizmos are, they are interactive online simulations for both math and science, and they focus on content as well as skills and processes. They're aligned for grades 3 to 12, and they're an engaging way to learn and build lasting knowledge. And there are about 475, actually a little bit more now, simulations to choose from. Why do Gizmos work? Well, they're ideal for an online, in-class, blended learning, and distance learning. They're designed for inquiry and interactivity, and they allow for manipulations of key variables, whether they're independent or dependent, for example, variables. They enable students to test hypotheses. In fact, they allow students to plan and carry out systematic investigation and manipulation of variables as necessary. They encourage exploration of what-if questions. They allow you to develop and practice STEM skills, making STEM engaging, fun, and interactive. They're going to help teachers implement inquiry-rich instruction, clear up misconception, and simplify complex systems in order to better understand them. They're going to include teacher lesson plans with differentiated activities to support all learners, including language learners, as it offers visual and experiential supports that connect students' background to prior knowledge. It includes interactive STEM case studies, which are the ones that I talked about earlier. These are a new format of Gizmos that put students in the role of STEM professionals, tasked with solving real-world problems to create authentic learning experiences. These STEM cases are mostly focused on the high school grades, 9 to 12. However, we've got a few already in place and more coming for middle and elementary school. If you'd like to explore a Gizmo, we can go to explorelearning.com. Before we continue on with the presentation, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and share with you what a Gizmo looks like. So let's go to explorelearning.com together. And you can see I'm already logged in here in my site. So all you have to do is just start working with a Gizmo. If you've got a second, scroll down on your first page and take a look at this Introduction to Gizmo video. It'll give you a very good idea of how Gizmo is used within the classroom. Otherwise, let's go find a Gizmo together. How can we find it? Well, it all depends on what you want to look for. Do you want to look for it by academic standard? Well, let's click on academic standard. It'll default to NGSS and Common Core, but you can switch it. You can switch it to Canadian curriculum, UK curriculum, Australian curriculum. We even have an IB curriculum alignment, which we would provide you only if you're in IB school, which means I'm not going to share it with you here today. So if you are looking at NGSS, for example, we can look at 5th grade. And as you can see here, we've got the standard and the Gizmos that go with each one of those standards. The other way you can look for a Gizmo is by grade and topic, especially if you're trying to get a general idea of how that Gizmo works. You've got it here divided by math and science, although most of the Gizmos have a blend of both. We focus on different areas from physical science, the life sciences, to earth and space, technology and engineering, science skills, etc., chemistry, physics, and of course, we divide them by grade bands. The third way to look for a Gizmo is by textbook. So let's say you are a teacher who uses Pearson. So we can click on Pearson, find the book that we're looking for, and look for which gizmos correlate best for that particular book. We have about 300 books and we're always adding, especially if you make a request, we will add it specifically for your school. My favorite way of looking for a gizmo is by keywords. So let's say I'm looking for the word food chain. I'm going to type it in here. And I will see how many results I get. I actually get 22 results for food chain. Fantastic. Now I'm going to go through them with you just to show you an example of a food chain. So we've got a food chain in a simple ecosystem consisting of hogs, snakes, rabbits, and grass. We've got a more complex one with forest ecosystem, prairie ecosystem. Then you'll notice that sometimes you'll find these that are marked STEM cases. We talked about them earlier. Let's click quickly and view what they look like. This one is where your students are then going to become a STEM. We're going to basically acquire a STEM job. And in this one here, they become national park rangers, and they have to restore the ecosystem of a park back to normal. So you can see here they interact with populations of many organisms, including wolves, deers, bees, and students learn the importance of food chain and webs and how human factors can impact the health of the environment. Here's what's great about this gizmo, which is, as I said, a special gizmo STEM case. It comes in 4 different levels, from elementary to middle school to high school to AP. Remember those cognitive levels that we discussed earlier? They'll be very clearly implemented here from one level to the other. Now, if you open the PDF of the teacher guide, which will tell you what you have in that particular gizmo, what you will notice is exactly how long it will take it to be completed for each version. Again, remember, if you're trying to do some differentiation in the classroom, let's say your students are high school, but maybe functioning at a middle school level, you can start them with a middle school or even elementary level and then move them up. Or maybe they're just on target, on grade level, and you'll put them in the particular grade level. And you'll go in and you'll know what you're going to be teaching and how it works with your standards. More importantly, you as a teacher have access to a standalone handbook for each one of these levels that you can open and view and modify and use to teach in the classroom. Especially if you're teaching online, how much easier would it be for you to share your screen and work through that with your students? Now, as your students are going to work this particular ecosystem, STEM case, they will get questions and they will answer them. And when they answer them, they will get the answer recorded in your home page. And I will show you that in just a few minutes. As I said, this is a very special type of gizmo. These are called STEM gizmos. These are standalone STEM activities. The regular gizmos, if you'd like, these are gizmos like this one, food chain. Let me just choose this one since it's at the top of the page. The other gizmos, these normal gizmos, if you'd like, conventional gizmos, they have the gizmo itself. What does this gizmo consist of? What will it do? It'll include lesson materials for your students and a vocabulary sheet for you and your students, as well as a teacher guide only for the teacher and an exploration sheet answer key only for you. What's great about the student version is it also includes a Google Doc format, PDF, Word, and Google Docs. So you can again modify it, add it into your Google Classroom. It'll include also in every gizmo lessons submitted from our community at large. As I said, we work in many countries, and so we have lesson plans and task cards, for example, that are quick ways of doing remote learning with your group or individual activities in your classroom. And those exist across gizmos in general. So let's click on the gizmo to show you quickly how a gizmo works. As you can see here, we can make a lot of modification. Let's make it a little bigger for you to see it. You can look at data in multiple formats, table, bar chart, graph, and you can of course modify the variables. Let's say we remove some grass, and you can see how that affects your ecosystem. And then you can see here, I'm keeping it fairly simple. I'm gonna pause it. And you can actually look at the data from a bar chart standpoint, from a table that you can export. Your students will be able to illustrate their work by taking screenshots and showing you what they've done and analyzing the graphs, etc., etc. Of course, you can have multiple variables. You can reset the data. Again, very easy to use whether you're in a regular classroom or you're online. And if you're trying to do some of these labs that maybe you were doing before, those wet labs that you no longer have access to, like maybe some chemistry labs, and I can just type chemistry here, and I'll get a lot of the gizmos that are, for example, and due to chemistry, related to chemistry. So if you look at solubility and temperatures, or we're looking at Boyle's law and Charles' law, or we're doing maybe energy conversion in a system, all of these are set up the same way so that you as a teacher will have access to the lessons that are pre-done, and then you can modify them as you need. As you see, all of the activities are scaffolded for you already. Your scope and sequence is right here, the time that it'll take you to run each of the activities, and discussion questions, questions that are going to allow that critical thinking to happen in your classroom, as well as a scientific or mathematical background and a real life application, as well as other resources, vetted free web resources, and other gizmos that will help you teach that concept. As well as that, in every lesson, what you will have is the student exploration sheet. And when you click on the student exploration sheet, you can modify it if you open it in Word or Google Doc. And you can also see that the lesson is set up as, again, following the 5E model. And it's really a guided inquiry. So you can modify it any way you'd like. And what's great about it is after each one of these gizmos, you'll have a quick assessment that'll allow you to check whether your students are understanding the concept or you need to go further in a particular area of your lesson. And this is what my classes look like in my homepage. And every time a student answers or works on a gizmo, I can see the results here. So for my STEM cases, I don't have any results. Unfortunately, I don't have, my students haven't taken it yet. But let me scroll down to show you results from a particular gizmo that they've run. Right here, I can see the data, how they're doing it. Or for a STEM case, what's great, I'll show you this one right here. I have some results. And you can see how some of my students have answered. And as they answer, I can actually check how they're doing, especially if you're doing it online or even in the classroom. You can verify in real time how they're doing. And then all these questions are related to particular skills. If you'd like to know more, we can spend some time giving you a demo, or you can attend some of our webinars that explain in detail how all of these gizmos work. Now let's go back to our presentation. All right, now that we've seen an example of how gizmos work, feel free to go to explorelearning.com and create a trial. Also, if you have a chance, please enter our draw. One lucky teacher will win a 1-year license for Gizmos for his class. Our Gizmos and Science for Us implemented in a blended classroom. So if you'd like to know how these programs work, well, the great thing about them is they work on any device. Any students with internet access can access Gizmos and Science for Us. They can even access them on their phone. They're easily integrated with various LMSs, and teachers can even embed Gizmos and Science for Us in their daily lesson plans, like in their Google Classroom. Teachers can record a lesson in an asynchronous manner or offer a live synchronous lesson using Gizmos and Science for Us. And they can follow it by assign different activities that are already preset in the system. You can use them, bring them out of the student exploration sheet, the teacher guide, or additional available lessons included with your Gizmos and Science for Us materials. They include formative online assessment that are a quick check for you to understand whether your students have comprehended the concept or you need to review. And the STEM cases include a much deeper evaluation that not only evaluates content knowledge, but STEM skills as well. And so if you'd like to take a trial of these, we'll be more than happy to arrange it for you. Finally, there remains one area we talked about, which would be closing the math gap. So how do we close the math gap? Our solution is a program called Reflex. So what is Reflex Math? Let's start by saying that students who are proficient in number facts have shown to have improved concentration, improved confidence, and a better understanding of complex mathematical concepts. So what we did is we used research based on brain science and proven methods with innovative technology to create this math fact fluency called Reflex Math. Reflex Math is online and it's game-based. It engages students of all abilities to develop automaticity in the fundamental mathematical facts, and that helps improve their math scores overall. Reflex Math allows students to develop positive attitudes towards math. And the way it works is adaptive and prescriptive. It includes powerful intuitive reporting features to monitor student progress. And all the coaching in the program is individualized to each learner. Better yet, it's available in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and French. So how is Reflex Math used? Because it's focused on working online, you can integrate it easily with LMSs, and it can work on any device. Teachers add students, choose an assignment. You can upload them very easily through a CSV file. Then the program itself adapts to each student's space and individualizes the experience. All the coaching is done in fact family format. And all the student needs to do is use it 3 times a week for about 20 minutes to see the result in their overall math scores. And for administrators, for parents, for students and teachers alike, there are deep reports that are available that are going to help inform the teacher's instruction in particular and allow parents to support their students. And I'll give you the link as well to take a free trial, as well as be able to take a tour of the program.
Here are some tips for a successful blended learning classroom. Understand what your students' needs are and clarify your expectations. Make sure your students are engaged and communicate and check in with them early, especially if you're adopted a virtual model. Make sure they're not asleep at the wheel and that your presentations are just more than just YouTube video presentation. Plan ahead for success and push for collaboration. Collaboration is going to be key. It's a key skill for students to adopt. Use effective research-proven tools to make sure that your students are receiving the best experiences. Invest in resources that give them a strong foundation and help them gain deeper understanding of the material. Get the right technology and push students to collaborate by inviting them, for example, to partner together on project or fostering project-based learning. And when you're adding technology to the classroom, make sure it's the right technology. You have to have a plan and you have to know what to do with the technology. So once again, make sure that the technology you have is not technology that you use because you already have it in the school. Make sure that it's based on the learning outcomes you need for your school. Think about what you want to do, for example, with the devices in your classroom. And finally, be patient. Don't give up. Think about what success means to you before you begin. Study examples and learn from other teachers. Ask for professional development for you and your team. And carefully choose the technology again. And you'll set, of course, realistic goals, and you'll soon be on your way to having a successful STEM and blended learning classroom. So with that, I'd like to thank you. And if you don't know about Explore Learning has been in existence for 20 years. We work with 68 countries. We are in many, many schools around the world. And I just wanted to give you a few notes about us before we close. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to know more about Explore Learning, please don't hesitate to contact me.